The will was read on a Tuesday morning in a lawyer's office in Nariman Point, with the rain hammering the windows and three people in the room who each believed the money was already theirs. Vikram Rao had been dead for 11 days. 73 years old, founder of one of Mumbai's oldest textile dynasties, found at the bottom of the main staircase of his Sahyadri Hill bungalow. A fall, according to the official report, caused by a loose stair rod and the carelessness that comes with old age. His daughter Asha had flown in from London the morning after the call. His son Dhruv had been in the next room when it happened, or so he said. And his second wife, Kamla, 22 years younger than Vikram, had been the one to find him. Three people, one staircase, and a man who, as the lawyer would soon reveal, had changed his will exactly 9 days before he died. The original will, drafted 7 years ago, had split Vikram's estate equally between Asha and Dhruv. 60 crores of assets, the Sahyadri Hill property, and a collection of Ravi Verma paintings that alone were worth 12 crores at last valuation. The new will gave everything, every rupee, every canvas, the house itself, to Kamla. Asha's reaction was the one you might expect. Dhruv's was not. He sat very still, hands folded on the table, and smiled the faintest smile of a man who was not even slightly surprised. That smile would stay in Asha's mind for the next 3 weeks, long after everything else had been turned upside down. Because a man does not smile like that when he has just lost 30 crores. He smiles like that when he already knows something the room doesn't. Asha hired a lawyer the same afternoon. Her argument was straightforward. Her father had been in cognitive decline. She had documentation from his cardiologist, and a will changed 9 days before death under those conditions was textbook undue influence. The case would take months, maybe years, but she wasn't going anywhere. She checked into the Taj Lands End in Bandra and began methodically and quietly to pull at every thread she could find. The bungalow was sealed pending the estate dispute, but Asha still had a key, the one her father had given her 15 years ago, that nobody had ever thought to take back. She went on a Wednesday evening when the city was loud enough to make a car in a driveway unremarkable. The staircase was exactly as she remembered it. Wide, curved, with a wrought iron banister and stone steps worn smooth from decades of use. The loose stair rod the police report described was on the 4th step from the top. She knelt beside it. It wasn't loose at all. It was sheared cleanly, as though it had been cut most of the way through and left for gravity and a 73-year-old man to do the rest. She photographed everything and left before 9. That night, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. 3 seconds of silence. Then the call dropped. She told herself it was a wrong number. She double-locked the hotel room door anyway. The next morning, she hired a private investigator, a former CBI officer named Suresh Pillai, who worked out of a small office near Churchgate and had a reputation for finding things people had specifically tried to bury. She showed him the photographs. He looked at them for a long time without speaking. Then he said something that made the room feel smaller. He said he had seen that kind of shear cut before. Only once. In a case in Pune 4 years ago. A different family, a different staircase, but the same clean cut on the same type of rod. That case had been ruled as an accident too. The man who died in Pune had also recently changed his will. Kamala Rao was not what Asha had prepared herself for. She had expected calculation. A woman who had married strategically and executed efficiently. What she found instead was someone who appeared genuinely frightened. They met at a cafe in Worli. Neutral ground Kamala had chosen. She arrived 10 minutes late, sat with her back to the wall, and spent the first 5 minutes watching the door. When Asha slid the photographs across the table, Kamala looked at them for a long time. Then she looked up. Her expression was not guilt, it was recognition. She knew about the stair rod, not because she had cut it, because she had seen someone else near that step 3 evenings before Vikram died. With a small metal tool she hadn't been able to identify at the time and hadn't known what to do with it after. She hadn't told the police, she hadn't told anyone, because the person she had seen was Dhruv, and Dhruv, she said very quietly, had told her 2 weeks before the will was changed that their father had promised him a controlling share of the business in a private agreement, one that predated the written will and that Dhruv believed superseded it. When the lawyer had read out the new will instead, the one leaving everything to Kamala, something in Dhruv's face had shifted. She had seen it. A recalculation. Not grief, not even anger. Just a man updating a plan. Asha drove back to the hotel in silence. She had come to Mumbai to prove Kamala was the architect of her father's death. She was beginning to understand that Kamala might instead be the next person in danger. Suresh Pillai found the Pune case in 2 days. The deceased was a man named Harish Mehta, a retired banker, widower, no children. His estate had gone to a charitable trust. The trust's registered address was a legal firm in Pune whose founding partner had gone on to merge with a larger Mumbai practice 3 years later. The Mumbai practice that had drafted Vikram Rao's new will. That was the first threat. The second came from Dhruv's financial records, which Pillai obtained through channels Asha decided not to ask about. Dhruv had, over the past 2 years, borrowed heavily against his personal assets. Not unusual for a businessman, except that the borrowing had stopped abruptly 8 months ago. Around the same time, Vikram's health had begun its visible decline, as though Dhruv had decided he no longer needed a loan when he could see an inheritance approaching. The third threat was the private agreement Dhruv had mentioned to Kamala. Asha found it, or rather, found its ghost. A notarized document that had been registered and then 6 months later formally revoked by Vikram himself. Whatever promise had existed between father and son had been cancelled in writing. Dhruv had known. He had stood in that lawyer's office on a Tuesday morning, heard a will that excluded him entirely, and smiled, because he had already removed the one person standing between him and a legal challenge. He hadn't needed the will to favor him, he just needed the person it favored to not survive long enough to claim it. Asha presented everything to the Mumbai police on a Thursday morning. The photographs, the Pune connection, Pillai's financial analysis, and Kamala's written statement, which Kamala had given after Asha spent 2 evenings convincing her that staying silent was the more dangerous option. Dhruv was questioned that afternoon. He arrived with 2 lawyers and a composure that lasted exactly 40 minutes until the investigating officer placed the Pune case file on the table beside the photographs from Malabar Hill. Something in Dhruv's face moved then. Not guilt, he was too practiced for that. Just the very slight adjustment of a man who had finally run out of steps to be ahead of. He was arrested the following morning. The case took 11 months to reach the Sessions Court. The evidence was circumstantial in places, damning in others. The Pune connection was the turning point. A forensic analysis showed that the tool marks on Harish Mehta's stair rod and Vikram Rao's were made by the same type of instrument, and a digital trail placed through in Pune on the weekend before Mehta's death, 4 years earlier, at a conference he had never mentioned to anyone. It turned out Harish Mehta had been a silent investor in the Rao textile business, a man Dhruv had needed gone for entirely separate financial reasons. The staircase in Pune had been, in a terrible way, practiced. Vikram Rao's estate remained frozen throughout the trial. The paintings were eventually moved to a secure facility in Baikula. The Malabar Hill bungalow stood empty for 2 years, its windows dark, the staircase sealed behind evidence tape that faded slowly in the monsoon humidity. Kamala left Mumbai 6 months after the arrest. She moved to her sister's house in Coimbatore. She never spoke publicly about any of it. Asha won the inheritance case the following year. She sold the paintings. She sold the house. She donated a portion of the proceeds to a legal aid fund in her father's name and returned to London with the rest. She said in a later interview that the thing she kept coming back to was not the staircase, not even the photographs. It was the smile, that small, composed, utterly unreadable smile Dhruv had given in the lawyer's office when his name was not in the will. Because a man who has just lost everything does not smile, and a man who is surprised does not smile either. The only man who smiles in that moment is the man who already knows what he has done and is simply waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. It took the rest of the world 11 months, but it got there.